We appreciate the time you've taken off your busy schedules to join us for a discussion on mobile financial services. And we are genuinely grateful to all of you, and especially grateful to the Governor of the Central Bank for accepting our invitation to be the keynote speaker for today. Since MTN launched the annual Mobile Money Month 9 years ago, we have deliberately included in the lineup of activities such a discussion to create awareness of key issues related to mobile financial services. As pace setters in this industry, we've made it our responsibility to stimulate and lead discussions to ensure the sustainability of fintech. This has resulted in deepening understanding, influencing policy in the fintech industry, and most importantly, increasing customer awareness of the issues within this space. So today, I'm sure we are all seeing the importance of mobile money and the wide range of services it provides, including the various payment platforms available, the e-commerce activities, international remittance services, insurance and banking activities. And you all agree with me that the common financial activity we all undertake most of the time is payments. And if payment systems are digitized in Ghana, it will help in growing the economy. So Mobile Money Limited uses its resources to create platforms such as this to ensure that we stay on course to grow the industry. Distinguished guests, we are privileged to have very experienced personalities in the industry who are very well prepared to share insights. And like I said, I always look forward to this because of the insights that are shared when we hold this forum. So we are excited to have the Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana as our keynote speaker. Sir, you are very much welcome. I'm also happy to listen and welcome our special guests and speakers, Madam Efia Apia, Group Manager for Just Because Fitness, Mrs. Mansanetti, CEO, Stanchart, Dr. Augustina Odame, CEO for the Technology Chamber, Mr. Kwame Opon, Head of Fintech and Innovation for the Bank of Ghana, and last but certainly not least, the man that I call the Papa of the MoMo, Mr. Elihene, who is CEO for Mobile Money Limited. Shall we give them a rousing welcome for accepting our invitation? Thank you so much. We cannot wait to listen to these distinguished personalities and experts, and I'm sure you are all prepared to either write or type the notes on your phone. Welcome once again and enjoy the discussions. Thank you.
There are many ways to get around, but there's only one way to pay.
Momo?
Sure.
So many styles to choose, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo?
Yes.
There's so many you can buy, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo?
Yes. Give me fish that will shame my enemy. That was slave queen.
There's so much variety, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo, come on, Yamu.
There's so many ways to get together, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Yes, Momo.
Got a payment to make? Use MTN MoMo and enjoy real convenience in all your financial transactions. Live life the brighter way with MTN MoMo. Just Momo it. We day for you, everywhere you go.
The Chief Executive Officer, Stanchart Ghana, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a pleasure to join you today to kickstart the 2021 Mobile Money Stakeholder Conference under the theme, Digitizing Payments in Ghana, a collaborative effort for success. Before proceeding, let me first thank MTN for this initiative and commend the company's management for demonstrating strong commitment towards the country's financial inclusion agenda and playing a critical role in Ghana's mobile money space. This annual event further demonstrates your immense contribution towards deepening financial inclusiveness and promoting consumer awareness on electronic money across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bank of Ghana has provided the requisite leadership in the development of electronic payments in the country. Over the years, the bank has revamped the payment system regulatory and legal frameworks and created an enabling environment to foster innovation and competition. This also paved way for payment service providers, especially during this pandemic era, to scale up access to digital financial products and services. These efforts have yielded positive results, and the mobile money space has contributed significantly to Ghana's financial inclusion progression. Mobile money slots are visible all across the country, and the volume and value of transactions are on the ascendancy. Over the past decade, mobile money accounts has increased 30-fold to 44 million as of June 2021. The volume of mobile money interoperability transactions have also increased 24-fold since its launch in 2018 to 10.3 million in June 2021, while GIF's InstaPay volume of transaction has also increased significantly since 2016. Beyond this encouraging performance of electronic transactions, new business models have emerged on the back of financial technology, providing a further boost to the electronic payment space. Currently, financial technology companies, fintechs, are collaborating with traditional financial institutions to provide innovative financial service solutions such as digital savings, credit, pension, and insurance. Indeed, financial digitization has expanded to include products that support government revenue collections, utility payments, and disbursement of financial aid to vulnerable groups in society. Banks and other financial institutions have all intensified efforts to move operations to digital platforms to better serve customers. With such giant strides in Ghana financial digitization process, one would have thought that cash usage will go down to the barest minimum. Unfortunately, this is not so, despite the attendant risk with cash usage. This clearly shows that the adoption of digital payments still remains uneven, and there is room for improvement to move the frontier towards financial inclusiveness through broad-based digital payments. To take advantage of the existing opportunities, the bank's long-term strategy for the payment system is to push for more collaboration among providers of financial digital products and electronic financial services. In some jurisdictions, such collaborative efforts have fostered greater economies of scale through resource pooling of infrastructure and minimized costs of testing new technologies, which have helped accelerate digitization of the value chain for both merchants and users. Under the current regime, our consolidation of ATM networks, introduction of the check code line clearing system, InstaPay services, the mobile money interoperability platform, and the universal QR code services were all part of the collaborative strategy aimed at eliminating fragmentation and duplication. These collaborative inclusive initiatives have provided open and fair access to a shared payment infrastructure for banks and non-banks. It also serves as a good example of a strategy of collaborative competition, which has been shown to increase scale and widen the scope of mobile money operations. In the same direction, the bank, as part of the policy to provide safe financial system, has collaborated with the financial services industry to establish a financial intelligence platform. This platform collects, analyzes, and disseminates real-time information on cyber threats and trends to enhance the detective capabilities of the industry. Indeed, the success story of the payment service industry cannot be told without reference to the strong collaboration between the bank and market players. On several fronts, the bank has worked with stakeholders to institute the sound regulatory frameworks that now guide the industry. These include issuance of the branchless banking guidelines, electronic money issuers guidelines, and the passage of the Payment System and Services Act 987. The Payment System Advisory Committee, which includes all the key stakeholders in the payment ecosystem, continues to provide a shared platform for accelerating digital payments. The strong partnership that exists between banks and non-bank financial institutions for the provision of digital payment is expected to strengthen further with the delivery of innovative value-added products and services to enhance financial digitization. To sustain the process, market players should continue to handle consumer data to develop targeted value-added products, but within the confines of the Data Protection Act and regulations. Incumbents, for instance, have large volumes of data, but the current legacy system may inhibit their ability to glean insightful information from this data for product development. With more agile technological capabilities and artificial intelligence, new entrants into the industry could collaborate with incumbents to deploy new products and services based on existing data that could foster a more vibrant payment ecosystem and penetrate the unserved segment of the market. Beyond this, banks and non-banks should collaborate and intensify efforts on education campaigns and awareness building on issues of payment fraud and general use cases. The successful implementation of such consumer education programs could impact positively on behavioral change and build confidence in digital payments and services. In addition, collaboration between agents and merchants should be strengthened to spur growth in digital payments, eliminate duplication of efforts, and lower cost. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the advance of digital payments within the Ghanaian economy hinges strongly on effective collaboration between the regulator, stakeholders, market players, and the end users of such products. To build such synergies, we owe it to ourselves and future generations to scale up the delivery of digital payments to create greater value for success. Also, we must steadily work towards eliminating the barriers that hinder effective collaboration among players of the payments industry to unearth the true potential of digital payments and help achieve the cashless economy agenda. On this note, let me wish you a fruitful deliberations and a successful MoMo stakeholder conference. Thank you.
I want to once again recognize the presence of Dr. Seto, who is sitting in for the governor. Thank you very much, sir. I also want to recognize a few other people I have here. CEO Stanchat, welcome, madam. We also have our other speakers from the Technology Chamber and our merchant, madam, welcome. And we also have the Telecoms Chamber, represented by the CEO, Dr. Ken Ashigbe. Thank you very much. I'm sure by the time I finish mentioning everybody, my presentation time would have been over. Thank you all for coming. The media, thanks for all the support over the years. It's always a pleasure to come here every August to discuss mobile financial services. And over the years, it's taken the effort of each and every one of us here, industry players, to bring us this far. And therefore, we need to applaud ourselves for how far we have come. So a big round of applause to all of us for bringing the business this far. Well done to everybody. Today, I'll spend the next probably 10 minutes talking about the digitizing of payments in Ghana and how we can work collaboratively to make sure that this industry moves from strength to strength. Okay, I'm sure the slides can, okay, thank you. So that's my content, overview, success stories, and then we'll also look at some activities that can send us to the next level. Can someone help me with that? Okay. So whoever is controlling, I'll just prompt you so we move to the next slide. All right. So here we want to look at just a brief overview of where we have come from. I'm sure in all economies across the world, policymakers are looking at the war against cash and how we can make our economies cashless. Ghana is not an exception, and Dr. Seto has talked about a lot of the things that has been happening over the period. Ghana's payment system has improved significantly since 1997, when the microchecks were introduced, and continues to evolve to meet the developmental needs of the country. And this is a quote from Bank of Ghana, and it sets the tone for the discussion. Now we look at what has been the enablers since we have gone on this journey. The government's commitment to a payment policy, the regulatory framework. Dr. Seto talked about the enabling regulatory framework. We've come a long way from branchless banking to the DEMI guidelines, and now we are talking about the PSSA. We also talk about the growth of mobile money, the strong investment and growth of the fintech industry in general, and last but not the least, the telecoms industry, because that also is a supporting platform that drives digital payments. The channels from checks, we've moved on. Today we are talking about apps and internet banking. The use cases are a lot, from the government payments to person to government, business to business, merchant retail payments, public utility, and the most fast growing, which is the person-to-person payments. Next slide. Now, continuing to look at how the mobile financial services space has evolved and has supported the digital agenda, or digitizing payments. I first of all want to talk about the agent network. The agent network has provided the access for customers to access mobile financial services. Agents are the point where the customer is able to set up a wallet, fund, cash out, do transactions. And the fact that we have so many agent points has made the service closer, or has brought the service closer to our customers. And that is what has driven the adoption quickly. Then we also want to talk about the aggregators, the fintechs, who have supported the ecosystem in terms of product innovation, product development, and making sure that we are developing product to meet the specific needs of customers and businesses, and ensuring that they take it to the next level where the platform providers are not able to reach. So aggregators have played a big role, and their role is bigger into the future. Then we'll talk about the bank partnership. And every time I talk about bank partnership, I always want us to talk about supporting one another and moving away from the conversation of competition. We should be complementing and collaborating to drive the industry forward. And the banks have been part of the agenda as well. Today, you are able to link your mobile money wallet to your bank account. And so in the middle of the night, you can still perform a transaction. And that has enabled transactions to grow and adoption to grow very fast, because convenience has been introduced into the conversation. Then we move into the merchant space. And that is where we are talking about. That's the new thing. That's the big thing, because every day, several people pay for goods and services. And so far, we've done some work, but there's a lot of work to be done. And last but not the least, this is the interesting space of interoperability. And here, I want to applaud Mr. Achihese and the team at GIPS for facilitating and supporting the interoperability of person to person. And I'm sure moving us into the next level where we'll now be looking at merchant interoperability, which will be driven by the GHQR, which will cement the whole consolidation that we are looking at. Now, if you look at the numbers, from 1997 to today, we've done so much. Dr. Seto talked about all the numbers, but still look at the stats. Cash is still winning. Cash is still winning by way of volumes. We've seen transformations, we've seen improvements in terms of the value of digital transactions, but the volume, the sheer volume of cash transactions means that we still have a lot of work to do. We've done well, but there's just so much to be done. Next slide. So here I want to talk about some of the world's cashless economies, just to give us perspective in terms of what has been successful, what has transformed those economies to where they are today. And I'll start with the Norway example. 96% of all payments in Norway are via digital channels. That's amazing. I mean, if you look at that number and you look at where we are, it tells you there's so much to be done. There's still a lot of work to do. 6% is what they do with cash. And if you look at the discussion, which is internet access and data. So that will also drive the conversation. And the P2P side, which is what drives the whole momentum, 80%. And they've seen consistent decrease in cash withdrawals over the years. And the success factors are there to guide us. National agenda. So there's a payment strategy nationally being driven by government. The infrastructure, investment in building the right infrastructure to support, because today if you have developed a platform which has an uptime of less than 99.9, it means that every now and then customers don't access the service. It goes down frequently, 80% of the time it is down. Nobody's going to think about it. So we need to ensure that our platforms are able to support the growth and the capacity that is required. Then the whole P2P conversation, how do we get that adoption running very quickly, was one of the success factors. And then the penetration of smartphones, because digital payments also evolves around smartphones. How do we get most of our people to move from basic phones to smartphones so that it brings a lot more convenience to them? Biometrics, the issues we've talked about, fraud, how do we mitigate that? How do we bring a lot more biometrics into the chart? And last but not the least, the convenience of identifying people. And this initiative is essentially saying that there's a bank ID that I use anywhere I go. So I don't need to remember my bank account. If I want to make a payment, once I provide my bank ID, the payment is done. Because once they input that into the system, it picks up my bank account and the transaction is processed. So the ease of transaction, I don't need to remember too many things. I can perform transactions easily. We move on to the Sweden story, and it's the same. If you look at, next slide. If you look at Sweden, next slide please. If you look at the Sweden story, it's the same as the Norway story. And the 91% for Sweden versus 96. So it tells you that economies have actually evolved and done so much. And if you look at the success factors there as well, it's the same. They also have the bank ID initiative, and then we've talked about the fintechs and PSPs, and also competition to drive innovation and adoption. Of course, education is important. So these are the success factors, and these are things we can also evolve, or we can also adopt, and we can also implement from where we are, and make sure that we also build stronger activities within our ecosystem. So adoption takes off very quickly, and our infrastructure is able to support the growth that we are seeing. We do not want to grow faster than we can invest and support. Otherwise, people lose interest if we are not able to do that. Next slide. Where do we go from here? Next slide. Now, we talked about the first thing from the success stories. We talked about national agenda, national strategy. We have what we call the National Payment System Strategy. National Payment System Strategy. This is something which I remember came up a couple of years ago, led by Stanchart, to put together a national payment strategy. So we have something we can go back to and look at. We have a digital financial service policy. These are all opportunities for us to build a framework nationally that can drive what we do, that can give guidance in terms of where we go, and bring government into the space. His Excellency, the Vice President, has been championing digitization, and I think that is the starting point. That is a very positive outlook from government. And so with all these strategies available, we need to go back there and see how those can be used to support the framework which has been put together by the PSSA and the other instruments that has been developed. So I think we have a vision. The payment system strategy is a 2024 vision, and I think that sets the tone. Next slide. Now, we'll move into what I'm terming the accelerators of the momentum that we need to do to unlock the potential within the industry. And I've talked about the national agenda already. We need that. We need something that brings all of us together, something that brings everybody's energy together and pushes us to move to the next level. We also have the discussion around partnership and industry adoption. Partnership and industry adoption. And the conversation, once again, is let's move away from the conversation of competition, because we are working to collaborate, and that's why we carefully chose the theme or the topic, a collaborative effort for success. Because if we work in our silos, we will not be able to harness the potential of the industry. So we should complement each other in our efforts, and we should support each other. So collaborative effort for success is important, and that's why the issue of partnership comes in. Then the regulatory environment. We've talked about the work Bank of Ghana has done, bringing together all the policies. Today we are talking about PSSA and other supporting policies to drive the industry. And I think that is a step in the right direction. Some of the other conversations we've been having is how we can drive regional trade. Today, we are able to do international remittance only inward. What can we put in place to foster the other side, which is outward? Where can we start from? What opportunities do we have? Because we are in a region where we have a lot of SMEs. And within that SMEs, we have a lot of opportunities. And you can see it. The opportunity sits in our informal sector, which constitutes 70% of payments that is done. And these people travel every day across our borders to do business among themselves. How can we improve their business opportunities? How can we improve the way they do business? It has to be both ways. So that is one of the things I want to put on the table from the regulatory standpoint, to see how that can also help us to achieve a lot in terms of promoting regional trade among our SMEs and small retail, which today we are looking at 70% of where the opportunity sits, and we'll be able to do that. I also want to remind us all about the potential of the telecoms industry. I talked about smartphones, and I also talked about internet access. These are all important accelerators to drive digitization, because in those areas where we do not have internet access, how can we achieve the data we saw for Norway? 90.3% of the Norwegians are able to do online payments. They need internet access. They need smartphones, smart devices. So it's important that the telecom industry is also part of the discussion, and they also come along to drive this journey. Education, 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 education. That does not stop. It is a continuous activity, and we need to do it in a collaborative manner, working together and supporting one another in making sure we educate the customer, we bring the customer's mind to the benefits of digital payment so that the adoption can come along. I talked about payment infrastructure. And here, once again, I want to mention the GIPS platform. These are the kinds of investments that helps us to work and bring the industry together. And so we should begin to look at how we can expand the work that GIPS does and also strengthen the capacity within that structure to be able to drive the next level of, we are talking GHQR today, to be able to create that level of adoption. GIPS should have the capacity to manage that kind of ecosystem. And we are also part of that, and we have committed to that, and we will be working towards making sure that GHQR becomes part of our payment ecosystem. So that is one of the things we'll be looking at. So the infrastructure side is important. It requires investment, deliberate investment into infrastructure development, so that our various channels will be able to support the adoption that we are looking forward to. Today, our apps should be able to be available all the time. Uptime should be good. The platform should always be available for customers to use any time of the day, and all comes from investment in infrastructure. Then the commercials and the incentives. The incentives, I've talked about one already. I mean, how can we promote regional trade through outward remittances as well, outward payments using the various mobile money channels? Commercials must be win-win. In partnerships, we should create commercials that helps the parties to be able to get the best in terms of the partnership. And we get a win-win for all. And so the commercials are important, and that is something we need to look at. Trust, getting the customer to trust the platforms, to believe that you are asking the guy to stop holding his cash, which he can feel, to doing something he can't feel but expect to work. How do you build trust? How do we take away the concern of fraud? How do we ensure that the customer believes in the platform and he knows that every time he wants to use that platform, it will be available? It's important, because the day he feels the platform is not available, he will go back to cash because it's the easier choice. And that, for me, doesn't help, because the cost of cash is so much. To the convenient customer, he doesn't see it because of the immediate convenience, but the cost of cash is so high. If you want to do a transaction today that requires cash, it requires you to move from one point to the other. Count the cost of travel, count the time, the opportunity it takes to do something else that you are using in traffic. But the customer feels that that is his best because he can trust that system. We should build trust around the digital platform so that the customer can trust that platform away from cash, and then we'll be able to win and unlock the potential. I'll close, next slide. I'll close with the use cases that we believe will stimulate the right behaviors and the right adoption. The government side is important because that's where we believe there's a lot of activity, and government payments should begin to look at that. The drive from the Vice President is important, and we need to continue to deepen that. And we also need to look at the open market where the opportunity sits. I made some comments about the opportunity within the informal sector. 70% of the payments happen then mainly cash. How do we go into that space? What kind of solutions would help to create the right adoption? So the open market is important. Today you go to Makola, and to a large extent, you're able to get some of the women to accept mobile money. How do we make that a complete turnaround where everybody will be willing to accept that instead of taking cash from you? And how do we incentivize such that the account handler or the store lady who is selling the item is also receptive? How do we achieve that? Because sometimes you go, the platform is there, but you say it's not working because he wants to take cash. He wants to feel cash. We go back to the issue of trust we talked about. We go back to the issue of the uptime of the platforms and the incentives that are there for them. And I think we'll be able to encourage that kind of adoption. Digitizing the various value chains. And here, there's a big opportunity there as well. Today, there is the agri subsector that we are looking at. We've done some work with cocoa farmers already. How do we improve their way of doing their business with their farmers. From the tilling of the land to the cropping, to the insecticide, to the harvesting, all those services can be digitized. And the farmer can access those services digitally. Today, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to someone who had come in and he was looking at how he can commercialize spraying of farms using drones. Okay? Now, this is someone who believes he has the specialty around delivering that service to farmers. There are two things you need to look at. One, he will be more efficient because that is his area of expertise. He will get the right mix of the chemicals and he will reduce the cost, because if a farmer goes to buy a particular quantity of insecticide, he probably may be forced to buy more than he needs. So there's cost he doesn't need, but this will be more efficient. And then a drone, so specific to the area and location and proper work is done. And it doesn't require the farmer's hassle. And because it will be delivered in a bigger quantum over a bigger economies of scale, you find that that becomes a cheaper option for the farmer. And the farmer can access that electronically, pay for the service, and his farm is sprayed. So those are some of the opportunities within the agri-sector. And then those who even sell these services of plowing the land, they also can be digitized. People can plow the land and payment can be made digitally. Then we've talked about interoperability already, so I'll not belabor that. Merchant interoperability, GHQR, and then advanced services, where we are talking about insurance, we are talking about savings, small credit, small loans, and we're also talking about investments, pensions. These are all opportunities to bring many more people into the space. And I believe that by the time we've looked at all that, looking at the various channels that the access can be provided, we should unlock the potential in this market. Thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the rest of the session.
Wow, please give Ellie another round of applause. Amazing. This is the 2021 MoMo Month Stakeholder Forum, brought to you by MTN, happening live at Kempinski. Live on CTFM. My name is Bernard Avelek. We've just received a very strong presentation which sets the tone very, very well. And I know Ellie had to rush, but there was a lot in there. Thank you so much for this, reminding us of the Vision 2024, distinguishing the enablers from the channels and the use cases. And then I like your slide on accelerators, set it out very nicely. I'm sure subsequent speakers will build on what you've done. Our next speaker is from one of the groups, actually. So she is working where the rubber meets the road, right? She is the group manager for Just Because Fitness. They manage several fundraising projects which require coordination of donations and payments utilizing electronic platforms. She's also an advocate for closing the gender digital divide and increasing female inclusion in the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is bringing us the merchant's perspective. She is Efia Apia. Please put your hands together.
Thank you very much, Bernard, and good morning to everyone. Actually, I just want to say that Mr. Hini has said everything I was coming to say. So, so please put back his slide number 9, please. Anyway, thank you so much. I actually like being called a merchant because it gives an indication that I might be enterprising. And I guess what I can say most is, if you're a business person, you don't have any excuse not to be a merchant, because being an MTN merchant pretty much gives you control of all your finances. You have it at your fingertips. There is an initial learning curve on how to really work that *171 hash. But after you get that down, it's very easy to use. I particularly like the fact that it's a safer mode of collection of monies, because when you're doing fundraising, someone is passing you money here, someone is passing you money there. But once you give your merchant number, you give your mobile money number, it's very, very easy to collate money, it's very easy to accumulate and to transfer money. I actually like the, in the middle of the night, you can do your bank transactions and everything, because that's exactly what happens at the end of the day. You have everything in your hand. Barclays, it goes to Barclays or ABSA, it goes to StanChart, it goes to Fidelity, and it's an excellent tool to help you save. Because if the money is not in your hand, you're not spending it. But if it's on your MoMo, you can easily put a little bit here, a little bit there, and easily track all your expenditure. So as an enterprising merchant, definitely MTN MoMo merchant is the way to go. I mentioned that I particularly like the bank transactions, which are seamless, and it's very, very easy to use after you learn how to use it. And it's safe. You're not carrying money anywhere. Everything is so seamless and so safe. That might be the only reason why I would stick to being a merchant. And control. We all want that control, and you have it right at your fingertips. But looking at the larger merchant ecosystem, I advocate all the time for women to be enterprising, and when they're enterprising, they should have the basic financial management skills of bookkeeping. Luckily, the merchant or MTN Mobile Money does this for you. You can track every single transaction, you can add up, you can subtract, but everything is right in front of you. No matter how small your enterprise, no matter how large your enterprise, you have this done for you, and it makes financial management very straightforward. You can be in the market, you can be in a shop. Having that tool is a world of difference. It makes a world of difference, and it enables savings. Enabling savings enhances access to other things like being able to pay for health, being able to pay for education, and better nutrition. I would like to, several figures stuck in my mind from the gentleman from Bank of Ghana. He said 44 million. Out of that 44 million, I would like to know how many are female merchants. Because we have research and data that states that if you're able to increase the number of women in enterprise who are digitally aware, we will double the economy. So there is that drive, there is that need. Slide number 8 of Mr. Hini's presentation. For financial inclusion, that drive to increase female participation in the digital sphere is very, very critical, because that can double our economy in Ghana. Thank you. Mr. Hini said it all.
Yellow! Today we have a very big surprise for all of you. You get a sonata. You get a sonata. You get a sonata. What's so open a sonata if you want it? You get a sonata. Sonata. You get a sonata. You get a sonata. And you can get a sonata too.
Everyone's excited about the MTN Act 25 promo. Just keep using your MTN number and talk, text, browse, and MoMo more to gain points, and you could win one of 25 Hyundai Sonata vehicles and cash prizes each month in the MTN Act 25 promo. Dial *156# today and begin your journey to win big.
Hey, man, try.
Only on MTN, everywhere you go. Terms and conditions apply.
Thank you very much. This is still the MoMo Stakeholder Forum coming to you live from Kempinski Gold Coast Hotel. We are trying to understand how digitizing payments will send us to where we want to be. And we're discussing collaborative effort for success. We just heard from Efia Apia with a merchant's perspective. Our next speaker is the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank Ghana. Ellie mentioned what they do already in terms of their role. She's also the president of the Ghana Association of Bankers, an integral part of several policy and business initiatives to develop the financial sector. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Mrs. Mansanete. Please put your hands together.
Thank you, Bernard. And good morning to everyone. I hope you are enjoying the morning so far. We've had some very insightful messages from Efia, Ellie, and Dr. Seto. So I would first of all like to thank Ellie and his team for organizing this month of interaction between stakeholders of Ghana's digital payment network, and very insightful presentation, Ellie. I guess, it's quite instructive that this message for today's engagement is a message to be delivered by the chief executive of an institution whose stock and trade is not technology, but cash. Ellie talked about a war on cash. But of course, I guess the answer is obvious. We are living participants in a global ecosystem where digital technology, innovation, and creativity are generating seamless synergies across a multiplicity of sectors, including banking, telecommunications, and fintechs. Recent events, global events, especially those of the past year and a half, have made it increasingly clear that businesses exist to serve a purpose, to make the products that improve the lives of consumers, and to preserve and restore the environment while promoting the well-being of their colleagues. As businesses, our stakeholders expect that we don't just not only serve a social purpose, but we deliver long-term sustainable value to the society and beyond our financial goals. At the just ended Tokyo 2020 Olympics, we all witnessed a historic spectacle which drives home the point I'm about to make on the changing dynamics of the financial services industry and the importance of collaboration. As the high jump competition was at a deadlock, where the finalists Tambiri from Italy and Bashim of Qatar had tried 3 times to clear the next bar set at the Olympic record of 2.39 meters and failed. It was a tense moment. The officials got into a huddle with the athletes and gave an option of another jump off. But the athletes, who had been friends for quite a while, had a better idea. Their creative proposal to share the gold medal was accepted by the officials. By collaborating effectively, they were both celebrated for what was supposed to be a competition intended for the last man standing. By simply agreeing to share the moment and work together for the greater good, they made a greater impact, and they will always be remembered in history. They both became famous medalists without cannibalizing each other's success.
and with the support of the authorities, they created a bigger pie of 2 gold medals. It might have taken them another 4 years at the minimum for each of them to get gold medals or to become gold medalists. But like these athletes, if all stakeholders in Ghana in the digital payment system together contribute to the evolving landscape, we will sooner than later have a world-class system that we can all be proud of. Ghana's payment sector is not what it used to be 10 years ago. At that time, mobile had just emerged as a crucial ingredient in retail banking. The word fintech barely existed. By 2012, mobile was the next big thing. Technology had become ubiquitous to day-to-day banking access, and banks embraced the change and invested in digital platforms accessed via computers and mobile devices. Ladies and gentlemen, banking today has changed significantly, and I think we can all acknowledge that. Customers are popping up on mobile payment platforms without an existing bank product as a referral. Fintechs and telcos have become complementary partners to mainstream banking as they seek to enhance its product offering and services to their customers. Collaboration has become the operative word for these companies in advancing their mandates in digital financial services, and through what we have witnessed, a scale-up in financial inclusion in Ghana. Ellie talked about it. And I'm sure MTN, you know more than me how many mobile money accounts exist in Ghana today, so I will not even attempt to put out a number. I think these developments have resulted in several collaborative outcomes, and I'll share a few. Ghana.gov formed out of a consortium of 3 local fintech acting as the brain behind the overall digital service and payment platforms for government agencies. GCB's electronic money issuance via USSD channel, MTN's partnership with MasterCard to provide secure global e-commerce digital payments to customers worldwide, Stanbic's collaboration with SlidePay to provide digital channels, Standard Chartered's collaboration with fintechs to offer our wealth management solutions via SC Mobile app, GIBS, in collaboration with banks and telcos, has enabled the instant credit and interoperability, we've talked about it, payment rails, making it possible for the development and the launch of a suite of payment and collection solutions. Banks have openly embraced the idea that we are complementary to each other's success and not competitors. This stance, coupled with our government's aspiration for making Ghana a digital and technology hub, could be crucial in helping to leapfrog our economy. Judging by the progress we have made so far, it is abundantly clear that all the players within Ghana's digital ecosystem need each other. And I think this was articulated by both speakers earlier. Telcos and fintechs could leverage the resilient anti-money laundering expertise, credit, and market risk capabilities of banks in scoping and mitigating risks related to financial transactions. Similarly, banks have a lot to learn from the agility and the speed of execution that telcos and fintechs are known for. banks, fintechs, and telcos have a lot of enriched data that could be analyzed more effectively using new technologies like machine learning and AI to help advance financial inclusion and access for every Ghanaian. In the new age where digital platforms have become an essential of life, like we witnessed during the COVID-related lockdown last year, banks, telcos, and fintechs need to collaborate more to combat the escalation of cyber and other fraud, which Vera Baird had aptly described in the recent UK Sunday Times articles as an epidemic within the pandemic. Ultimately, we need to together promote the cross-pollination of ideas, experience, and expertise from either side of the triangle as a critical enabler for building capacity to address the operational and knowledge gaps and drive innovation. I think regulation also has a key role to play. Regulators will certainly play a crucial role in creating and enabling a strong legal and regulatory framework that would help address the challenges associated with the deployment of solutions. Enhanced regulation by the central bank and the strengthening of fraud detection protocols by banks will help maintain confidence, you talked about trust, in digital platforms and promote better financial inclusion. Recently introduced legislation such as the Electronic Transaction Act, the Data Protection Act, and the Cybersecurity Act offer greater data protection and privacy to customers and safeguard mechanisms that promote financial inclusion. The Central Bank Fintech and Innovation Office, Kwame is sitting there, the head, established to oversee electronic money issuers, payment service providers, and the operations of non-bank entities is certainly an opportunity to grow the pie while properly defining the roles and responsibilities for each of the players, banks, fintechs, telcos, very important. In conclusion, financial inclusion is multifaceted and diverse, embracing a number of initiatives for both the supply and demand sides of the financial ecosystem. Payment platforms such as Ghana.gov will, beyond acting as a single point of access for all government agencies, ultimately boost confidence in the financial ecosystem and accelerate adoption. Banks will continue to play a leading role in the overall quest for financial inclusion and sustainability in Ghana and the sub-region. The Ghana Association of Bankers continues to work and collaborate with the central bank and other key stakeholders, such as GIBS, to drive a cash-light society and drive key policy reforms in the national payments regime to provide a platform for banks, telcos, fintechs, digital financial services to co-create and innovate for a better inclusive environment. Standard Chartered as well remains committed to partnering with the central bank and other policymakers to drive financial inclusion and a cash-light society. Having operated in this market for the last 125 years, we have pioneered new solutions and innovated to meet the rapidly changing client needs at the right scale. We successfully rolled out our fully digital bank on mobile, SC Mobile, across Africa to promote financial inclusion. Globally, we set up SC Ventures, which is a business unit that is created to promote innovation, invest in disruptive financial technology, and explore alternative business models in collaboration with other banks, fintechs, and telcos. Through SC Ventures, we will continue to roll out platforms across our footprint, such as Solve, which we've currently rolled out in India, which has improved SME access to financing and other support services. Another platform is called Nexus, which we've rolled out in Indonesia, which offers banking capabilities as a service and a lot of initiatives that seek to collaboratively enhance the capacity of fintechs and service providers. We are looking to progress this level of collaboration and partnership in Africa, where SMEs and individual consumers could benefit immensely. As banks in Ghana, we are committed to continuously partner and co-create with fintechs, telcos, and other stakeholders in the digital ecosystem to provide better acceleration, dynamism, creativity, and stability required to achieve the scale and digital aspirations we have all set for ourselves and businesses as a nation. Thank you very much.
Please put your hands together one more time for CEO of Standard Chartered and the President of Association of Bankers. Wow. I was happy listening to you, Mansa, because of two things. You know, I was watching the Olympics last week, and I thought I was wasting my time. But to think that you even watch the Olympics, it means that, Charlie, it's not that bad. Because I actually watched that thing, the example you gave, the high jump. And I was wondering, why am I sitting down watching this? So clearly, if Mansa Nete watches the Olympics, who am I? This was around Saturday afternoon or something. And I also think your call for collaboration is great response to Ellie, and even sharing examples of your competitors. It tells us the way you think. So thank you so much for setting the scene. We have two more quick speeches, then we'll have a quick panel discussion. Now, the lady to speak to us is wearing a couple of hats. She's an economist and a technology consultant with expertise in financial technology and payment systems, as well as business setup and regulatory compliance. She's passionate about harnessing the power of technology to create and deliver solutions. So on one hand, academia and research. On the other hand, she's the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Technology, which brings together many organizations in technology, fintech, and other things. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Augustina Odame is our penultimate speaker. Please put your hands together for her.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you've had a good morning so far. I'm sure we're all learning a lot. I would like to say thank you to Eli and the team for taking the initiative for this program, and also in even further demonstrating the leadership by the presentation that he put. As you would see, subsequent speakers have said that Eli has taken swaths of their speeches away, and I'm no different. It's a great testament to the already existing collaboration within the ecosystem that each speaker swept a chunk of my notes away. It's not just Eli, the Bankers Association also did. The merchants also did. And I'm actually not mad about this because it leaves room to step back and look at some bigger picture issues. It's been great taking a walk down memory lane with Dr. Seto and Ellie today about the journey from having literal and figurative doors shut in your face when you try to even introduce the concept of fintech, to having potential partners and clients, to the status quo where we have a clearly defined responsive regulatory regime as established by the Payment Systems and Services Act and the establishment of a Fintech and Innovation Office of the Bank of Ghana to both regulate and promote fintech innovation. The memories of the frustration, tears, and extensive collaborative learning, both internally as the Chamber of Technology and externally in various stakeholder consultations and workshops the journey has entailed, will not be forgotten anytime soon. And we are working and will continue to work with all stakeholders within the digital payments ecosystem to create more of such memories and advancements. This journey from the inception of mobile money to the widespread availability of digital payments across the country and the growing number of Ghanaians employed within the space is a wonderful illustration of the possibilities of leveraging technology to democratize crucial services and opportunities to all Ghanaians, regardless of their geographic and demographic stations in life. To continue on this upward trajectory, there's no denying the need for stakeholders to collaborate on one, further developing the digital payments ecosystem without compromise to the stability and integrity of the financial system and ensuring the protection of financial consumers. And two, leveraging the ecosystem to realize the immense potential the digitization of payments holds for accelerating various national development outcomes. This includes financial inclusion and economic empowerment, increasing the effectiveness and productivity of key sectors of the economy. We have an example of the agricultural sector and the digitization of cocoa payments along Ghana's cocoa value chain. Improving governance by way of increasing transparency and reducing corruption. We see that in the example of plugging leakages and increasing transparency through the digitization of various public sector payments, such as the ports and harbor payments, etc. We have made great strides as a country, and from the fintech perspective, discuss a few key areas or issues we can continue to tackle collaboratively to make even greater progress on our journey towards a cashless Ghana. First one is working together to create and deepen the existing markets in order to deepen financial inclusion. One crucial link on our journey towards a cashless society is the ready market for financial deepening. And by financial deepening here, I'm referring to increasing the provision of financial services, both with regards to a wider choice of services and with regards to better access for different socioeconomic groups. According to the World Bank's report on payment aspects of financial inclusion, consumer awareness and financial literacy is a key catalyst driver of access and usage of transactional accounts. Ensuring consumer readiness, such as enhanced financial capabilities and adequate consumer protection, are key to realizing the full benefits of digitizing payments while minimizing loss and other adverse experiences for consumers. Consumer readiness requires that individuals have adequate access to and understand and feel comfortable using digital payments to meet their financial service needs. This includes the products. Here we have the product design and modalities, the inclusivity of that, the communications around that, and how well the terms and conditions and modalities of these products are communicated to the consumers. We also have the understanding of the providers and how they operate, and the various platforms and devices used to access the products, such as the mobile phones, web apps, etc. This is where tech savviness comes into play, as well as the payment processes and the consumer rights and recourse mechanisms involved. By payment processes, if there's a set out procedure that you believe you have communicated well, and in use, it does not translate into delivering the results expected, whilst you might be able to theoretically say, well, it's your fault, at the end of the day, we are all working together towards something and it does not help that. Customer trust and confidence in various aspects of the payment ecosystem are fundamental factors that affect uptake and regular use by low-income consumers. This is particularly true for women, youth, and other demographic groups who are less familiar with formal financial services and digital payments due to being historically excluded in one way or form. Indeed, digital payments could be less effective and even have adverse effects if consumers do not view it as safe and reliable, or if they have negative experiences when introduced their products and services in the system. In the case of digital financial services, examples abound of consumer trust being lost due to simple problems that could likely have been addressed with the right education or design solutions. The acceleration of digital payments during COVID lockdown, where market women and men who would roll their eyes at you when you asked previously whether they had MoMo, were now ever willing to accept MoMo, also saw an attendant uptick in fraud, as new consumers who did not have the knowledge and fraud awareness were compelled to transact digitally. This is far from a loss of X amount of Ghana cedis and the number of disgruntled customers. It's go way deeper. The loss of trust will have people deciding to do things like keeping their monies under their beds rather than at the bank, as well as several decisions decidedly in the opposite direction of the nation's cashless agenda. MTN has on its part done and is doing significant work to educate customers and mitigate fraud. And the banks also do their part. The Chamber of Technology is also doing its part in building member capacity and support to ultimately be able to address some of these issues. And the Chamber members individually through education and product design are doing their part. There is also existing collaboration that we can see between PSPs and banks and PSPs and telcos on various projects. And in those projects, we see the effectiveness when the strengths of the various parties are leveraged and brought together to work towards the common goal. For instance, the network of the telcos and the network of the bank, as opposed to the product of a fintech, and then the communication plus the network is able to reach and address the issues that we needed to address. Academia is also stepping up, with the UGBS holding this April as Financial Literacy and Awareness Month this year. It will be great to have an acceleration and consolidation of ongoing government activity as well, and intervention in this space, and increased stakeholder collaboration. Increasing access to financial services through savings credit, insurance, and other financial services for households and firms is critical for Ghana's national development. These financial services facilitate investment, savings, and risk mitigation, all of which contribute to economic growth, job creation, and poverty reduction. It's such crucial to address this issue to ensure these benefits are realized. The second issue that I'd like to throw a little bit of light on is on digital identity. We usually hear of a digital ID in the sense of documentation and verification vis-a-vis KYC formalities for accessing critical services, and as a necessity to effective implementation of targeted social protection programs. However, in the quest for a cashless, increasingly digital economy, we need to step back and reassess digital identity beyond its primary blanket implementation. We have data-rich IDs, such as our biometric national IDs and passports. However, if I'm accessing a service or at the point of a service access, where at that point the only verification needed to verify is whether I'm 18 or not, should I need to present my passport or national ID with its rich data, increasing the risk of identity theft and other privacy violations should the ID fall in wrong hands? There is the need for a holistic consideration of digital identity, where the data subject or owner is the data controller, where citizens can share the details necessary and sufficient for any purpose, including regulatory ones, at any point in time where they would like to verify their qualification to access a service. This is especially important in view of the Continental Free Trade Agreement and increasingly digital trade. If all I have to verify at a point is whether I'm a citizen of ECOWAS to access a service, and if that service provider at that point does not have the adequate permissions and protections to handle sensitive data, how do I give them just what they need without opening myself up to undesirable consequences? This is something that stakeholders we can work and collaborate on to figure out. Digital trade has established a considerable footprint already, with business-to-business e-commerce transactions estimated to be worth over 15 trillion annually, and business-to-customer transactions a further 1 trillion. African e-commerce is also rapidly growing at an estimated annual rate of 40%. Indeed, the digital economy in Africa is expected to grow to over 300 billion by 2025. And this is if the pandemic has not revised this even further upward, on the back of massive mobile penetration, among other technologies. The focus here is two. One, to not exclude people from services based on their inability to obtain more stringent ID documents, and two, to protect the data and identity that people do have and give them ownership and control over these data and identities. Finally, As the government has set the intention and is taking steady incremental steps towards the realization of the national digital agenda, it's vital to bring everyone along. A fully digital public sector where the private sector remains largely manual is unlikely to achieve the intended benefits of digitization of payments. For instance, with revenue mobilization, if businesses have majority manual processes and bookkeeping, only to pay digitally at the point of paying their government obligations, there is still that significant gap for verifying and accessing reports upon which certain payments are made. Over here, I'm making reference to the informal economy, which represents a larger chunk of our economy. It therefore makes economic sense to loop in the rank and file of the private sector, especially the informal sector, so we can digitize at every level. MSMEs cannot be left behind. If we leave them be only to digitize at the point of meeting their payment obligation, it becomes an expensive bottleneck to squeeze through. It is cheaper, easier, and more efficient to digitize services right from the base. Also, as the ecosystem matures, it's important to ensure that the economics continue to work to maintain an enabling environment for innovation and expansion of digital financial services. This is to reiterate the point that Eli made earlier about it needing to be a win-win-win scenario in order for us to see the progress that we all desire. Conclusion, the full benefits of digitizing payments can only be realized if digital payments are if not more, ubiquitous, affordable, easy, convenient, and secure as cash. And stakeholders need to work together to ensure this, and we will. Thank you very much for your attention.
But there's only one way to pay.
Momo? Sure.
There are many ways to get around, but there's only one way to pay.
Momo? Sure.
So many styles to choose, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo? Yes.
There's so many you can buy, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo?
Yes.
That to shame my enemy. That was slave queen.
There's so much variety, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo, come on, Yamu.
There's so many ways to get together, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo? Hey, yes, Momo.
Got a payment to make? Use MTN MoMo and enjoy real convenience in all your financial transactions. Live life the brighter way with MTN MoMo. Just MoMo it. We day for you everywhere you go.
Month Stakeholders Forum coming to you live from Kempinski Hotel, organized by MTN. And Dr. Odami, thank you very much. I didn't know his name was Eli. I always thought it was Eli. Apparently it's Eli. Interesting, I see. So, or the Ewe is Eli and the English is Eli. Fantastic presentation. You know, MTN is very wicked. First of all, they let Eli say everything that has to be said in his slides, and then they say 4 people come and talk after him. Then they put the guy who's from the BOG at the end when everything else has been said already. So I really don't know what Kwame is coming to talk about, but I will just be praying for him. His appointment made us happy because the Bank of Ghana thought it wise to have a head of Fintech and Innovation. He's doing some great stuff there. So let's hope that he has something else to add to what's already been said before we do a brief panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, Kwame Opong, head of Fintech Innovation, Bank of Ghana.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here again, and I've been very happy to hear the conversation today. I think over the years, we have all heard Bank of Ghana actively champion the need to collaborate within the sector. It has been by design, if you look at our policy and regulatory framework right from the beginning, and continues to guide our efforts in promoting fintech. Now, there's a lot of conversations that have been had about this whole sector digitization and payments digitization and the efforts to collaborate. But I just wanted to highlight 3 key documents in addition to the payment laws and everything else that is put out there. 1, the National Financial Inclusion and Development Strategy. 2, the Digital Financial Services Policy. And the 3rd is the Ghana Payment Digitization Roadmap. Now, these 3 documents were put out around the time COVID was really battering us, but the content of these documents have guided and will continue to guide us in our efforts to drive digital payments. Okay, I think your clicker. Next. So this is what happens with service interruptions if your digital efforts are not well coordinated. Anyway. Okay. So I have some animation, just keep that in mind. But these are basically the foundation of what we are doing, the efforts we're putting into this. And I want to highlight a few things after talking about the policy document that I just made reference to. We have all seen over the years a few interesting innovations that have come onto this market. It's particularly heartwarming to hear Manta's speech, making reference to some of the things that some banks in Ghana have done within this sector. But let's take a step back to what we can also do, not just from a regulatory standpoint, but from a government standpoint. Now, for any of these initiatives to work, so you look at a country like Norway, you look at some of the references that have been made, there are some key elements that are important for you to achieve some of these objectives. 1, you need to have a strong digital identity underpinning your digitization efforts. And I think one advantage we've had is the creation of our Ghana card, the National Digital Identity Card. 2nd, you also need some kind of digital payments ecosystem. Now, we're fortunate in this country that our regulatory framework was very forward-thinking, and to that end, it paved the way for the creation of mobile money, the launching of mobile money services here in Ghana. Subsequently, some other policy interventions were introduced, and then a Payments Act that finally also looked at bringing on board the fintechs, now called the payments service providers. You also need some form of digital content, which makes reference to some of the things that Dr. Odame has referenced. And the 4th would be digital authorization. So these are issues around how I authenticate myself as Kwame Opong for any service that needs to be provided to me, or how I determine in that authentication process what is, thank you very much, what I can also use to establish how much information I want to make available to a service provider. And these things are important from a data protection standpoint and from a consumer protection standpoint. So I'll give you a sense of what Ghana's architecture looks like and what our current state of affairs is. Now, in view of what I've just described, the first thing, we've talked about the national ID and the enrollment that is going on. 2nd, the fact that we have interoperability in payment, so a payment ecosystem that is not fragmented and is operating in silos, but is actually operating fluidly across different platforms. So we have the benefit of a triad, going across mobile money platforms to bank platforms and to eSwitch. So whatever type of service platform and ecosystem you're in, for the fact that we've established a national interbank and payment settlement systems, their platform is able to allow us to seamlessly transact across. Okay. Next is a fintech ecosystem. I think the dynamism in the fintech ecosystem, I'm not going to overemphasize. You have heard from the CEO of the chamber, and I believe at this point, you may at some point have used 1 or 2 fintech services. It's important that you give them some feedback in terms of your experience with it. But the goal, if you look at everything else that is happening, in comparison to the 4 key elements that I highlighted, you're seeing that we're actually an ecosystem that has some of these things going on already. Finally, maybe make a quick reference to interoperability from the perspective of having payment infrastructure. So we have our GH-Link, GIP, and all these other critical infrastructure in this market that is enabling that seamless transaction across board. Now, I'll talk a bit about Bank of Ghana's role in all of this, in terms of how we view a collaborative ecosystem. Now, you heard a lot about collaboration, which again, I'm very happy about, because often you see the energies and efforts fighting in the other direction. The Association of Bankers, the Telecom Chamber, who represents the mobile money providers as well, the Chamber of Technology, have all been working together for many of the things that you may not actually have noticed. And we continue to work on these things, and we'll work with them as a central bank to ensure that that collaboration is not just in word, but is actually happening in action. So how we view this is there's an underlying layer, a foundation of robust and enabling regulatory provisions. Laws like the Payment Systems and Settlements Act. You have other directives and guidelines that we continue to put out, the existing banking sector laws. These govern the entire ecosystem. Secondly, all of this activity, you may notice, sits on the banking rails. So mobile money, payment service providers are all operating rooted firmly in the formal financial sector. So that's why there are partner banks who work closely with these service providers. Second, you have the mobile money ecosystem itself. Now, these would be the service providers like MTN MoMo Money and Airtel, Tigo, Vodafone, ZPay, Yap, etc. Then you have some key enabling infrastructure which we've talked about, the ID, National Property Addressing System, the Ghana Post GPS, which addresses a very important element of not just who a person is, but where they are, or how to locate a place digitally. And then, of course, interoperability. Now, upon all of these set of elements that I've highlighted, you also have the last layer, which would be the payment service providers or the fintechs. And so what you see is there's an interdependency across the different actors within the space running on a solid foundation that ensures a certain level of safety and security of the ecosystem, because our goal as a regulator is to ensure security and safety. Even in our efforts to promote mobile money, payment service providers, banks, and all the other actors that are actively promoting financial inclusion, one of the things that we are very carefully and painfully aware of is the reality of risks. Now, as a central bank, these are not things we're taking lightly. And so there are several measures we're putting in place. You know, there are competition risks, there are liquidity risks, there are cyber risks, fraud was mentioned. All of these are risks that we've been taking very careful and painful efforts to examine, understand, and put the right measures in place to be able to address. And so for those of you who have gone through our licensing process, you can attest to what rigorous endeavor that is. Hopefully by the time you are done with it, you do see the value in that whole process and the confidence that it gives you. Next, you would also, okay, I think my slides are back, so you can skip to the 8th slide, I believe. Okay, so this slide. Go ahead. Next. Good. So these are some of the risks I mentioned. These are all risk areas that as a central bank we're looking at very carefully, thoroughly, and in detail, using a lot more of forward-thinking analytics to understand and rightly calibrate the risk and the necessary efforts in terms of mitigating them that needs to be applied. Next. Next. Okay. So a few things that I'll touch on. One, the fact that the ecosystem is rooted in the formal banking sector. Two, the licensing and supervision efforts also, first of all, seeks to ensure that you have properly governed institutions within the sector. We cannot have an innovative sector and a fintech ecosystem in a national digitization effort that is not supported by properly regulated and governed entities. So this is something we take very seriously, and that reflects in our licensing process. The final thing I'll just highlight is the fact that we're using certain supervisory technology tools. So yes, innovation is not only within the remit of our service providers, we internally are also invested in building the right tools and capabilities to know what's happening where, how, and to be able to sufficiently monitor and govern this space so that we can achieve our goal of allowing safe innovation on the market for the benefit of consumers, for the benefit of the economy, and the benefits of the businesses involved. Next. So I'll give an example with COVID-19. I remember when the potential of a lockdown was upon us, there was an engagement with the entire financial sector. And the leadership of Bank of Ghana ensured that that process was collaborative. It was a very firm and straightforward conversation, as some of you who were part of those may remember. But in the end, we were able to establish certain things, come to certain understandings that have given us the confidence. And I believe when I look at the enthusiasm with which collaboration is embraced, I can see that there are some roots from this. Through that process, we're able to relax the KYC requirements so that you could use your telecom registration data to sign up for very low KYC accounts, controlled limits in your transactions. We're able to introduce a free peer-to-peer transaction under 100 cedis. I believe some service providers have continued subsequently. Your daily transactions were increased. The monthly balances on your wallets were increased, because this is also a point, as Dr. Dami mentioned, there were some merchants who were sort of caught flat-footed. Previously, they wouldn't have accepted mobile money payments, but now they found themselves in a situation where that was the only way they got paid. And so it was important that we created and accommodated them in a way that they could continue to use the service for their own safety and also in furtherance of our agenda. So next. I'm just going to run through a few other interventions that, in addition to ensuring that this space is safe, when it comes to promotion of fintech innovation and digitization, some of the key interventions that we put in place so far. First has been an inward remittance guideline. Now, this has looked at the fact that we have several family members and friends who send monies to relatives locally. And we do see the value that innovation is bringing into that space in terms of reducing cost and the convenience that it introduces. And so we brought a guideline in place. We put that out there to adequately govern the activities of service providers who are engaged in this. Next, we also introduced a crowdfunding policy. Crowdfunding is something that a lot of you have already been involved in one way or the other. But it was important that we ensure that consumers are well protected. We ensure that the models that are being introduced are well governed and are in compliance with our existing laws. And most importantly, we're not allowing anyone to use these avenues and innovations as a channel to do money laundering and any undesirable activities, such as financing of terrorism activities. Of course, issues around liquidation procedures and protecting contributors' interests were also firmly grounded in this policy. Next is interoperability. So this is a bit dated, but there was an update to interoperability. So you may not have noticed, for instance, that you no longer pay up to 1.5% if you're sending across network. The maximum that a service provider can charge you is 1%. There were some other changes in there, but they were more to the benefit of the ecosystem and the service providers themselves. Next is merchant payment, and this is very important for us as a country. The bulk of our digitization efforts have to be focused on merchant payments. This is why we're taking the painstaking efforts to ensure that we're working with everyone on GHQR. The cash sits mostly between people paying businesses. This is where the volume sits. Look in your own lives. On a monthly basis, how many people are you sending money to versus how many times are you making a payment? If we really want to uproot cash, or at least reduce it to the barest minimum, we absolutely have to look at merchant payment. And we have to be able to do that collaboratively as an industry and not single-handedly. No single service provider can achieve this objective without collaborating with others. So we also have a sandbox pilot that we've been running. The goal of this is we recognize the fact that innovators are always moving in 10,000 directions at the speed of light. It is important that as a central bank that gives approval to the products they bring onto the market, we are able to thoroughly assess them. But often, that thoroughness also could be at the expense of a quick time to market, which is a critical ingredient for success for any service provider, whether bank, mobile money operator, or fintech. And so a sandbox platform allows us to be able to do that in-depth evaluation and be able to give a yay or nay vote on a product or service before it's released onto the market. Now, I'll just make a quick reference to a last project that we're working on. If you can skip to the next slide. The Ecd. So you may have seen a press release this morning about the Ghana Ecd Project, which is a central bank digital currency. That is not the focus of today's conversation. There will be more engagement about that. But this is an example of our efforts to further drive innovation and further drive digitization here in Ghana. We've learned a lot from COVID. We're on our own, but we're not incapable of solving our problems. Neither are we incapable of taking advantage of defining what the future looks like, defining what the new economy looks like for ourselves, for our benefits. And so I entreat you all, as you have all said in this conversation, every speaker prior to my being here has spoken about collaboration. Know that the central bank continues to be behind you, will continue to collaborate with you and provide you the necessary support and the enabling environment for you to be successful for our country, for our citizens, for our economy, and for your businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kwame Opong from the Bank of Ghana. I think for the last speaker, I'm surprised he has so much to say. Clearly, this issue is very multidimensional. Put your hands together for him one more time. Thank you very much indeed. This is the MTN MoMo month. We have a few minutes to just do a quick panel discussion. So much has been said, and I really don't have a lot of questions, but I still feel we need to know and so what, right? So many things have been said. If you wanted to do a news item, if I send a reporter to this program, it's okay. What happened? Ellie said this, doctor said that, Mansa said this, Kwame said this. So what? What's the main issue? So that's what I want to achieve. So I'm going to ask the speakers to come back upstage just for 5 minutes, and I'm going to ask them one question each, and I need the answer in 30 seconds so that we can have a headline, okay? Because at the end of the day, we don't have time for a lot of detail. So please, if you can come back, Ellie or Eli, Dr. Augustina Odame, please come up stage again. Oh, put your hands together for them. Kwame, please stay up. And I'm going to just do a short panel discussion, and then I'll ask a couple of you here to also make some comments. So please come up and take your seats. I will move to the seat up there. Should I stay or should I go there? Which is better? Should I sit down or should I stand? Thomas, I should stand. Okay, for the cameras and stuff. Great. So please move to the other side. Yes, so they can capture in the camera well. Dr. Is it Dr. or Mr. Kwame Opong? Kwame, please go to the other side. Our panel is comprised of the 4 of the 5 presenters. From the merchant side, we had Efia Apia. From the regulatory side, Kwame Opong. From the industry driving change, we have Eli Hini. From the research academia and chamber side, Doc, if you can move to that seat. Great. So I have just one question, okay? Just one question. But let me do a testing mic first. So Eli, say hello into your mic.
Hello.
Great. If you can say hello into your mic.
Hello.
Doctor, if you can say hello into your mic, please pull the mic towards you.
Hello.
And Kwame, if you can say hello into your mic. Great. Is there any question on the floor? Let me know if there are questions so that I'll know how to structure this. Is there any dying question? 1, 2. Okay, so 2. Just hold on there. Great. We've heard a lot of great speeches. Clearly, we are doing well. There's still a lot more to do. So my question is, what is the most important thing to do next? Do you understand the question? You've said a lot of things. Ecosystem, collaboration, integrate. MTN, merchant, research and chamber, Bank of Ghana. What is the most important thing to do, and who's supposed to do that thing? Is that a good question?
I would go before Mr. Hini this time.
Say again?
I will go before Mr. Hini this time.
So that he won't take your apple. So the question is, after all we've said, our theme is digitizing payments in Ghana, a collaborative effort for success. We've done well. We are saying there's still a lot of cash, so we want to move further. Great. What is the most important thing to be done next? And who's supposed to do it? Let me start with you.
So from what I said, the most important thing is to ensure that we have as many women as men in the digital sphere. So there are recognized barriers to women being in the digital sphere. We have, of course, the cost of the handset, the process through which you register to be a merchant. All these things have to be also have access to the benefits of being a merchant. And who is to do that? I would say primarily the service provider should have that responsibility of making...
Sorry, you're saying the most important thing to do is to bring more women to the ecosystem?
Yes, definitely. More women...
And the person to do that is the service provider?
Yes, MTN...
Who is the service provider? This guy?
Yes. Yes, so Ellie or Eli should make it easier for women to walk up to a point, a registration point, and be registered to be a merchant, or to even register your mobile money account. Then you can update it to be a merchant. That is very critical.
Okay. The most important thing to be done, according to IFIA, is that more women must be brought into the ecosystem. Because like Agri said, if you empower a man, you empower an individual. But if you empower a woman, you empower a whole community. So, and she says you are the one supposed to do that. React to that before I ask you your own question.
Well, I mean, the assurance I'll give to IFIA is that is being done already. We actually have a dedicated program for women in terms of driving payments, and we've been doing that, and that is championed by one of my colleagues, who happens to be a lady as well, Ruth Bedu, who looks after that part of our payment ecosystem, where we are deliberately going out to look for women to participate in the financial ecosystem and drive adoption. So that is already done.
Now, your own question. What is the most important thing to be done for us to get to where we want to get to, and who's supposed to do it?
Well, I think the most important thing that is to be done is in the theme, and it's the word that starts with C. We need to find ways to collaborate more. For me, that's it. One person can't do it all, and it can't be one person's responsibility. It's a responsibility for all the players within the ecosystem. And I think where we need to go is to find the synergy to support one another and achieve the same focus. And I mentioned the same word again, another C word. Let's take away the conversation around competition, and let's look at complementing each other's effort and collaborating better. I think those, for me, will be the key words I'll leave here. And of course, in all this is the customer. In all this conversation is the customer. So after doing all this, the question we must ask ourselves is, are we meeting the needs of the customer? And are we creating the opportunity for the customer to onboard our services? So I'll leave it in those two pockets. Collaboration and how we ensure that the customer is on board everything we do. He is the final.
So you've made it very, you are saying we should collaborate more and it's everybody's responsibility. Okay, I'll pause, I may come back. Dr. Odam, what is the most important thing to be done after all has been said, and who's supposed to do it?
Okay, so I would say that the most important thing to be done is to unlock two levels. One is the inclusivity level, which ties into what both Madam Ifia and Ellie said. So with regards to customer-centric, creating inclusive products that cater to different types of customers, differently abled customers, customers with different characteristics from the prototype customer that we are currently innovating for largely. And then for the second part is to unlock the second level. So for instance, in Kwame's presentation, he mentioned how important it was to unlock P2B payments. So we need to move deeper. We've been content with playing in the shallow water for quite a while. We need to move bigger because as the law has come into place, as increasingly progressive policies are being made, and as more and more entities get licensed, the competition is going to get tougher, regulation is going to close off certain revenue streams, innovation is going to have to increase both upwards and horizontally. And so we need to unlock these two levels for the next step.
Sorry, can you explain this two-level thing again? I just want to be clear. You are
So
saying...
the first one is with regards to inclusivity. So the gender perspective and also differently abled customers. So for instance, with regards to a lot of the communication, we are still largely doing a lot of communications in English. If you have any sort of disability or limitation, it's quite hard to find financial services that are specific towards you. And so we need to unlock those two levels, gender inclusivity and also inclusivity for differently abled individuals. And then the second one is to quickly move on to the next level, to unlock the next level so that there's a bigger piece of the pie for us to share so we are not all fighting for the current pie. We need to bake a bigger pie. And so one example is the unlocking of the P2B, the merchant payments conversation. And to tie everything in addition was the win-win-win conversation, the increased collaboration and all that. And so the second part of your question to who is responsible, it's all of us. The private sector, the service providers, telcos and PSPs will innovate. The regulator provides the enabling environment and work together to educate our customers and bring them up so that the products can serve them and both also make money for us.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you for that, Doc. So, Kwame, what are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. Once again, it's interesting to hear the feedback. But I will say that maybe I'll take a quick detour and make a comment on what Madam Ifia said. It is very important. The issue of representation when it comes to gender cannot be accidental. It has to be by design, whether you're a service provider or you're a policymaker. On our part as a central bank, we now require, we're now doing gender disaggregated data collection. And so our service providers, the fintechs and the mobile money operators, as part of their reporting, we're now starting to we've been taking this data. It's a first step to understand the problem. The next step will be how do you fix it? Secondly, having gender champions and all these other elements are very important. And it's good business from what we've studied everywhere else. So that's something I just wanted to highlight as part of this discussion. But to the bigger issue of who's responsible for this, I think it's a collective effort. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is that you start off with the customer first. Why are you doing this? When you put the customer at the heart of all of this, issues around whether you're adding value to their lives, issues around how you protect them, issues around how you enhance access, issues around how you deepen the mix of services that can help address their challenges and their needs, that becomes a possibility. That becomes much clearer if you're clear in your mind who you're doing this for. So it starts from a customer centricity standpoint. Whatever you're doing, either as a regulator, as a policymaker, or as a service provider, starts with the customer. And that's the most important thing that I think we should keep our eyes on.
Wow. Clearly, there's synergies in the answers. We all agree you should put the customer first. You all agree we must bring more women into the space. And you all agree it's a collaborative effort. So at least we have something to work with. Put your hands together for the panel, please. So we have 3 things to work with. Are there any questions after this nice round? Is there any other issue that you need to clarify? Those who raise their hands, do you still want to ask your questions? Okay, please. There are a couple of standing mics. Please come to the mic, mention your name, ask your question, 30 seconds. We'll take all the questions at once, give 1 round of answers, and then we're done. So I'll start with the gentleman who's behind this mic. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello, everyone. My name is Abu Muhammad. My question goes to the regulator. And I think we did indicate some of the interventions that is required to accelerate the growth of digital services and payment. As regards to the outbound of transfers and payments. And we've talked about inbound, and now we receive monies on our mobile phones today from across the country. And we know so much volume of business happens across the borders in this, even our West Africa market. When are we going to see outbound transfers as well and payments? Thank you.
When are we going to see outbound transfers? And who is the question directed to?
To the regulator, of course.
The regulator?
Yep.
When are we going to see outbound? So take note of that. Thank you. Second question.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Bernard. My question goes to Mr. Eri. He said Norway is the most cashless country in the world. And I believe they are able to achieve this because of easy internet penetration. And I want to know why in Ghana, what is preventing us of also achieving this higher internet penetration? And can local content help us to achieve this higher internet penetration? And lastly, I want to find out from the organizers, after this forum, can we have access to all the presentation, especially from the Bank of Ghana? I'm interested in their COVID-19 response. Thank you very much.
Please, was the question clear? The first question is to Eli. Yes. Increase penetration.
Yes, please.
Second question was to Bank of Ghana.
Yes, if after the forum, their presentation.
You want to access their presentation?
Yes, please.
After the forum?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Two questions
Thank
for
you very much.
Kwame, one for Eli. Is there any other question? Yes, please.
My name is Sani Abdurrahman. I've heard a lot about enhancing your security infrastructure, which has the tendencies to discourage people from patronizing the service. In terms of the technology that you're using, what are you also doing to improve the security so that these issues of MoMo fraud will be mitigated?
This is to who?
To MTN.
To
MTN.
MTN, okay.
Yes.
Enhancing security infrastructure. What technology are you using? Kwame, your questions were very simple. Outbound transactions and whether you give them your presentation.
Okay, so let me just say we do recognize the fact that there's demand for outbound transactions. We also, as a central bank, have certain responsibilities and obligations that we hold sacred. For that purpose, over the years, outbound has been restricted. However, this is an area that we're seeing new innovation, and we're finding new ways to be able to potentially address the risks that have hitherto been deemed too far for us to, too high for us to allow outbound, particularly within this space. I think the question that was asked pertains to mobile money service providers and PSPs, for instance, being able to do outbound. Because today, as a Ghanaian, you can do this through the banking system, through SWIFT. We're studying that. At the appropriate time, we will put a policy position out there, but as it stands, it is not yet permitted. We're going to be doing some work in our sandbox to be able to test different solution options that different innovators have in mind. So hang in there. If something comes that I'm sure you hear from the central bank. Thank you.
Thank you. What about your presentation? They wanted your presentation.
I'll look at that and make sure there's nothing in there that cannot be shared, but I think generally they should be public, so I'll coordinate with MTN
and you give out the shareable parts.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Eli, somebody wants to know about penetration. Yeah. The other one has to do with enhanced security infrastructure.
All right. Thank you very much. I think our question was to do with internet access and internet reach. And that is part of the bigger agenda of the parent company, Scancom or MTN Ghana. And if you notice, there's been a lot of discussion around expansion and spectrum access. And those are the areas that we need to continue to work on to try and expand our network. So once we do that, on the investment side, each year we invest millions of dollars in providing the various connectivity accesses across this country. and we are working to ensure that we provide 4G experience to all our customers, starting from Accra and moving into the other regions. So you can trust that that is part of our focus, and we'll continue to work to achieve that. In terms of the infrastructure to support security, it's a continuous activity, and I keep saying that those conversations are not just a single point conversation, because remember that the system must be able to facilitate transactions, and therefore the customer is also part of the ecosystem and is part of that particular chain. And so the weakest link in the chain is important. That's why customer education continues to be one of the key areas of our focus, to ensure that the customer understands the service. Remember, during one of the presentations, there was a conversation around how quickly people had to move into digital payment, because COVID has come. You can't go out, you can't do a number of things. You're also forced to become digital in your activity. Now, that comes with some level of basic understanding, what to do, how to protect your account, keep your PIN, safeguard your transactions. And those are learning curves for customers. And so it's important that that part is also put into the discussion and not isolated, because you can build a secure system. If somebody throws his PIN away or leaves his wallet unguarded, that becomes an exposure. So it's a joint effort, and we'll continue to work to achieve that. It's part of the focus, and you saw it in the presentation. Continuously work to achieve that. Thank you.
I have a last question for you. Dr. Odami said we must increase inclusivity. We all agree. Then she says we must move to the second level. Essentially, what Sweden and Norway is doing is the second level. In my view, that requires two things. Internet penetration in those countries is almost over 100%. Therefore, you can get the numbers you got. Number two, you may have to kill certain things you do to force us to the next level. Let me give you an example. Cash out is very big in Ghana, right? I don't think you can. Cash out is a big issue in Sweden or Norway. They don't do cash out because people are using the thing within the system. Now, cash out obviously gives you a lot of money, and a lot of the merchants like cash out. A lot of the agents like cash out. What are you prepared to discourage that as the catalyst for the second level she talks about? Because if I can do cash out and I have money in my pocket, there's no reason why I'll still want to go and do. And when I even go to a filling station to buy petrol, and I tell them I'll pay MoMo, they squeeze their face. Because they say, the MoMo there, you have to pay something. They want me to pay cash. Okay, so we've created a system that inherently encourages cash, and yet we are saying we want to go cashless. So first point, what is the MTN General going to do to increase penetration, to serve as a platform for everybody to be able to do things within the ecosystem? Number two, are you prepared to discourage cash out, to encourage that level that she talks about?
All right, thank you. I think the one on the internet access had provided some guidance in terms of our focus investment and trying to get additional spectrum to be able to expand our connectivity. Now, the second one is already an ongoing engagement. Remember that in these mobile money journey, we've traveled a long way. We started with what we call over-the-counter transactions, when you don't need a wallet. You just go to an agent and do a transaction. Then we found ways of discouraging that and promoting wallet access. And so we make it more expensive to do that transaction and cheaper to do P2P. And that drove the wallet adoption, and P2P is driving the format now. Now, if you go into payment space, and it's one of the deliberate activity we have done, in the payment space, most of the payment transactions are free. To a large extent, there are few outstanding conversations around making it completely free. Today, you pay about 20% of the cost of cash out. 20% of the cost of cash out. So you save 80% on the cost of your transaction if you do a payment to a merchant. So those are the incentives. Now, the next one is your pump attendants who are saying, give me cash. It's the incentives we put at that level so that they also become excited about accepting payment. And that's the next level we need to go, getting the merchant. So someone like Ifya understands the value too well but we need to get the kind of a fiat types across the merchant network so that they appreciate the value that comes to them, and they are now yearning and telling the customer, pay me with mobile money or pay me digitally rather than give me cash. And that forces the conversation. So that's where we need to get to, the value proposition, and also making sure that they are excited about it. But at the customer side, it's taking those barriers, and we are already achieving to a large extent.
Any comments on that point from anybody on the panel?
Well, it's very interesting to hear. Let me just be upfront. We're very much aware of the fact that merchant payment is often one of the most difficult within the digital payment ecosystem in sub-Saharan Africa. Let me put it in context. In countries that have more advanced payment ecosystems, they have fewer challenges, but ours is very different. And so we don't presume there's a silver bullet for this. However, I think a combination of stick and carrots is definitely going to be how we approach this. So it may not necessarily be how you've addressed it in terms of cash out, but it may be something else. But certainly, the first and most important thing we need to do is to create the readiness. If you stop me from paying with cash, can I pay that merchant with something else? Put aside their interest in taking it. Are they enabled to take it? And that's where GHQR comes in. And that's why it's important that we drive such initiatives, so that when every merchant is able to access this very affordable means of collecting payments, they have no excuse. The value also is clear. And there are PSPs, banks, mobile money service providers who are providing not just the ability to collect payments, but adding some value in addition to that. And so creating that option for them, scaling that option gives you a reason to begin to push, pinch a little bit on the other parts that may be incentivizing people to go towards cash. But fundamentally, I think the mobile money model began by allowing cash out because people needed to have the confidence, and to that point about trust, the confidence that, well, if anything happens with the skepticism back in the 2007s and 8s and 9s, they have the confidence and comfort in their mind that if I put my money in here and I want to take it back in cash, I can still get it. So when you introduce mobile money to someone in the early days, and Eileen knows this very well, they will first put their money in and withdraw to make sure they actually got their money before they can comfortably leave their money in there. So it's a journey, and I think we'll have to use a combination of both. We'll continue to work with them as a regulator on some of these things. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think this is great. Can we put our hands together for the panel one more time? I think if there's any takeaway, I still can use the 3 C's, right? So certainly we need to focus on the customer. Everybody agrees on that. Number 2, we need to increase inclusivity, bring everybody to the table, women in particular, the poor and vulnerable, the rural folk. We need to bring them into the table. And number 3, it's a collective responsibility. It's not one person's job. And I think for Mansa and the way everybody is feeding on everybody, we clearly know what to do. I can't let Ken Ashigbe sit here and not say anything. So if for nothing at all, you just have to give us the closing remarks because of all the work you've done. And Ken, one of the things I want to touch on is education and the role of the media. I'll tell you something. When I watch television, people are still referring to Ghana cedi in old cedi terms. Over a decade since we moved into redenomination, when they are talking, Midimiseka 3,300,000. And this is something we did a whole national campaign on. So habits are difficult to change. And I feel one of your slides has something called education. People must know the value of this for them. So Ken, I'm bringing you in for many reasons. You're a big man, you're an engineer, you're a doctor, and you also now are with the Chamber of Telecoms. What are your closing thoughts?
Well, thank you very much, Bernard. So I think for me, the example that was given by Mansa, when I watched that Olympic Games, one of the things that said to me was that definitely for us as an industry, the only way we're going to win is collaborating. And it was shown very succinctly in there. And it was one of the things I had written before even she spoke. And you have heard that from all of us. It's that the competition is cash. We need to find ways of killing cash. The only way that can happen is things like this, where we bring everybody within the ecosystem together to be able to collaborate in order to win, in order to compete. And the whole issue of education really, really is critical. And we need to put our consumers, our Ghanaians at the very core of it. We've done so well so far, but there's still a lot of work to be done. This transition of moving from digital financial service as a means of just transferring money to ensuring that payment is done is something that would need all of us, our collaboration. And definitely the government side of things, government really needs to push it. And I think Ellie put it very succinctly. And we need to ensure that this whole conversation about all payment from citizens to government, from government to citizens are digitized. We need to also ensure that when it comes to everything about the payments, the merchant system, we can make it as simple, make sure that we are driving it a lot. And the education thing would have to continue because that is the missing link in all of this. People still are comfortable with the way they've been doing things and they still want to hold it. But when we put it at the back of our mind what the cost is, even to Bank of Ghana, you know that one Bank of Ghana has to replace those currencies, you have to pay for it. And we then break it down and make sure that those incentives go back to the citizens. That is the only way we'll be able to do it. And I am every time I get the Bank of Ghana talking, I'm happy about the way they're regulating the environment in terms of the inclusion, getting everybody together and speaking. The next level of people we need to speak a lot more is the consumers. How do we get them to participate in this? And all of us go on this journey to ensure that this is done. And this annual thing by MTN is one of the things we would want to commend because we constantly need to be talking about this. We constantly need to be sharing ideas. And the final thing is for government itself. Government has a major, major role to play. Incentives that will be put in place to make sure that everybody in the ecosystem is able to then jump on board has to happen. Currently we are talking about this whole thing about fertilizer and the fact that we bring the fertilizer in and it whittles out. How do we digitize that whole process? How do we ensure? Because once you do that, you cut out the whole issues of the inefficiencies around all of that. Those are the things that government also needs to bring on board. The way we live our lives, the way we run our government, the way we do everything, we need to find ways in which we can use these digital platforms to be able to transform them. Definitely we are going to get there. The only thing we need to do is to accelerate the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Engineer Dr. Kenneth Edemashigbe. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, this has been a collaborative effort, MTN providing the right leadership drive. Our 2021 MoMo Stakeholder Forum is ended. I want to say a big thank you to our panel members. In no particular order, Kwame Opon, who's the head of Fintech Innovation BOG, Dr. Augustina Odami, CEO of the Technology Chamber, Efia Apia, Group Manager, Just Because Fitness, and Elihini, CEO, MTN Mobile Money Limited, and our convener. Please put your hands together for all of them.
There are many ways to get around, but there's only one way to pay.
Momo?
Sure.
So many styles to choose, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo?
Yes.
There's so many you can buy, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo?
Yes. Give me fish that will shame my enemy. Some of slave queen.
There's so much variety, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo, come on, Yamu.
There's so many ways to get together, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo? Hey, yes, Momo.
Got a payment to make? Use MTN MoMo and enjoy real convenience in all your financial transactions. Live life the brighter way with MTN MoMo. Just MoMo it. We day for you everywhere you go.